Who doesn't want their garden to look beautiful throughout the entire growing season? That means even late in the season. So how about 5 perennials that are easy to care for, and of course since they're perennials are going to come back every year, that you can integrate into your garden for beautiful bloom late in the season. Let's start with these daylilies. This is one of my favorites. Blooms really late. It's the latest one I have here at the farm. It's called Autumn Minaret, and the scapes can grow up to 6 feet and plus tall, making a striking display. Now for the second perennial I'm suggesting that you use in your garden for late bloom is this one. It's called Agastache Blue Fortune. It's wonderful. It's been blooming for almost 3 months in my garden, and it will continue right up until fall. It's the perfect plant for attracting pollinators and butterflies. And I love the color. It goes so well with yellow, which brings me to number 3, goldenrod. Now, I know a lot of people think goldenrod causes hay fever. It really doesn't. You may know it as a Native American plant, of which it is, but there's some wonderful garden cultivars you might want to consider, like this one called Fireworks. Each one of these little sprays of flowers look like, well, fireworks exploding in the air. And it's a very, very hardy perennial. Okay, perennial number 4. Ornamental grasses. There are a lot of them to choose from. I just love the textural contrast they can bring to a garden or a patio or terrace, particularly when you grow them in a container like this. I'm growing them more and more in containers because I think the look is really great. This is a type of perennial fountain grass, but there are lots of different types out there to choose from, so make sure you add some of these to your late flowering garden. Now the 5th late blooming perennial I want you to know about is Russian sage. You may already know about it, sometimes called Pavrovskia triplicofolia. I prefer to call it Russian sage. And this time of year, it's just finishing up its first round of blooms. So we're in zone 8A, and what I typically do toward the end of summer is I come in, and that's sort of the end of July, early August, and cut these stems back to about knee height like this. We will get a huge bloom again in October. So by cutting this one back, you're going to get gorgeous blooms well into the fall. Just look at all of this color in my garden, and I'm embarrassed to tell you how late in the season it actually is. You see, these were just planted about 45 to 50 days ago from seed in the ground. So if you want to grow zinnias like this, you want to make sure the soil is warm and you give them plenty of sunshine, and they just need moderate water. And when you water them, you don't want to water them overhead. It's better to run like a soaker hose or something, or deep soak the ground, because you can get powdery mildew on the leaves of zinnias if you overwater them. Plus, it doesn't make the flowers last as long, and they're not as good for cutting. When I planted these, I wanted just to have a mixture of colors. So what I did is I just got some packs of seed, mixed them all up together, and sowed them down this long row. And if you look closely, you'll see the myriad of colors we have here. There's apricot, and there's peach, there's red, there's yellow, even creamy whites, and a wide range of pinks and reds. The other interesting thing about zinnias, like so many cut flowers, is that the more you cut them, the more they put off side shoots and produce more and more flowers. So you're not hurting anything by coming out here and gathering up a bouquet like this every other day or so. And it also makes sense to come along and cut off any spent blooms. What you're doing is you're telling the plant that it needs to produce more flowers. From the Garden Home, I'm Alan Smith. One way to really jazz up a summer cocktail party or even a wedding shower is to take cut flowers like these and integrate them into a floral chandelier. Color plays such an important role in how we feel about a space, whether it's outside or inside the home. But let's take the garden for instance. I got a few basic principles that I always follow when using color in the garden. For instance, I divide color into 3 parts. I go with warm colors, neutral colors, and hot colors. Let me give you an example of the neutrals. Well, green, in my opinion, is a neutral color. Gray is a neutral color. And over here you can see this is a gray-green neutral color as represented here with this Elaeagnus hedge. And you can see here I've followed a certain theme with pinks, with these Rockapulco double impatiens. I like to choose a single color family. Let's take a look in the front. So what I mean by a color family is if you choose a pink, stay with all pinks, all of the cool or warm pinks, decide one or the other. For instance, here I've used purple and hot pink, and it's echoed over on this side of the bed where I have purple ageratum, coleus, blue salvia, and this purple fountain grass. So I'm staying within the same color family here. Blues and purples here, blues and purples there. What you get is this echo back and forth. That helps the garden feel more harmonious. You have a consistency that's going on. It's restful to the eye. From the garden home, I'm Alan Smith. Now this is a little project that you can do that doesn't take a lot of time. You can get as creative as you like, and you can use any size container you like. You see, it's called a 3-tier planter. So what I've done is just taken some old terracotta pots. I've cleaned them up by washing them with a dilute solution of bleach and water. And after I cleaned them up, I just simply spray painted them. And so I have a saucer here in blue, a container in red, the next container will be blue, and then the one on top, which is slightly smaller, will be in red. You can come up with your own color scheme. Let's get started. So what you can do to sort of fill the bottom of the container, which will give support and also provide drainage, is just to crush some soda cans. I have 3 of those in here. Then I'm just taking a soil that's specifically blended for container gardening. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take 3 of these sedums. This is a great plant that doesn't require a lot of care or a lot of water. Then next, just take the blue container. Now, I didn't use the soda cans in this because I don't have a lot of space in the container, plus it's going to drain at the bottom. It'll be just fine. Okay, so I've placed this. Now, in this one, I'm only going to plant 2. And then, you guessed it, to top it off, we use the red one here. Add a little soil. Doesn't take much. And I'm going to finish it out with 1 container here in the top. From the garden home, I'm Alan Smith. You know, there's something nice about having a few of your own fruit trees. I love these nectarines, but you have to make sure that you're managing them correctly. See, by coming in and taking out some of these little tiny stems like this and cleaning up around the trunk, what I'm going to do is make sure that the energy goes into the limbs that I want through the remainder of the growing season. You see, this tree is building up starch. It'll begin to set its buds for next year. I want to make sure that I have the fruit on the limbs that matter the most. So I'm taking out a lot of these little low limbs here around the base of the tree, and I'm thinning out some of the interior branches. The idea with most fruit trees is you want to make sure you get plenty of sun on the inside of the tree to ripen the fruit. If these trees have any fungal problems, they drop fruit, they drop leaves around the tree, you want to get all of that cleaned up as much as possible. You want to spray under the tree, basically the diameter of the tree up until its drip line, which is the outer edge of the limbs. Now, another thing you want to keep in mind, these trees can become so laden with fruit, you just can't believe it. So I put a 4-inch post or stake in the ground next to the tree and then tied it with some of this plastic tubing. You see, you don't want to use wire because it'll cut into the trunk of the tree. If it does that, it'll weaken the tree. It'll also open it up to disease and insects, which is not good. From the garden home, I'm Alan Smith. You know, gourds are pretty fascinating. I think to me, because they're useless in today's society, we don't need them for dippers or vessels or tools like we did thousands of years ago. But I do think they have a place when it comes to decorating. That's why I keep them around. It can be really cool for any kind of table decoration you might want to do, something kind of fun and funky, or something for the holidays. Just look at some of these. This is a dipper gourd. It would be used to dip water. And this is a bird's nest gourd. And this is a baby caveman club gourd. We also have snake gourds and also one called an apple gourd growing right here on this trellis. They're wonderful. I planted them back once the soil got warm in the late spring, and the vines, well, they just grew like you cannot believe. And they've produced all these different gourds. And the best time to collect them, if you want to dry them, is when they begin to turn. Of course, I'm picking some of them green because I want to use them for a tablescape. But what you ideally want is for them to begin to dry like this. The seed will rattle. It takes about 3 to 4 months for gourds to dry. You want to keep them in a cool, dark, dry place. And if they begin to get a little bit of mold on them, you want to wipe them off with a dilute solution of chlorine, and that will keep the mold at bay and let them dry completely. From the garden home, I'm Alan Smith. Let me show you a time-honored method for turning a green tomato like this into a beautiful red ripe one. It's really quite simple. What you want to do is cut them with a knife, a sharp knife, or scissors, and you want to make sure that you leave the little cap and stem on. That actually helps. When you bring them in, just rinse them off with some tepid water and let them air dry. Once they're dry, go through and pick out the ones that are white like this. See that whitish color? Don't go for the really dark green ones that are small and hard. Those are better for salsa verde. When they're white like this, they're more likely to ripen. With them sorted out, what you want to do is take the tomato and just take a piece of newspaper like this and just wrap the tomato in a newspaper and store it in a dark place, like a box. You can see I'm just placing these tomatoes inside here, one at a time. Now what you'll want to do eventually is place this box in a cool, dark place. When I say cool, I mean 55 to 70 degrees. If you want them to ripen a little faster, warm the temperature up. Another way to accelerate the temperature is to take an apple or two in a box this size and place the apple in the box with them. You see the ethylene gas that an apple gives off accelerates the ripening of really any fruit. From the garden home, I'm Alan Smith. I want to show you 2 ways that you can preserve fresh herbs out of your garden. This is a really easy way to save fresh herbs for the winter, as well as save you some money. Today, I'm working with flat leaf Italian parsley and some sage. Okay, let's start with the parsley. What you want to do is bring the herb in, wash it, and allow it to dry. You can pat it dry, but let it air dry for a little while. And then just simply take the leaves of the herb and lay them out on a cookie sheet like this. Just spread them out evenly and do as many as you like. Now, let me pull one out of the freezer that I started about an hour ago to illustrate my point. Aha, look at this parsley. Flash frozen right in your own kitchen. I have parsley and here's some basil. Now all you have to do is take the herb, put it in a freezer bag, mark it and date it, make sure there's not much air in it, and pop it back in the freezer. Now another technique to try is to actually freeze the herbs in ice. You can take an ice tray like this and chop up some herbs. In this case, I've used the Italian parsley, about 2 tablespoons each, and put them in the ice tray. Simply pour the water over them like this, Next, all you have to do is pop them in the freezer and let the ice freeze solid. And there you have it, fresh frozen herbs. And you can keep these all winter long. From the Garden Home, I'm Alan Smith. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and be sure to ring the bell for notifications.